Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Ashatyade Shatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri
Hare Krishna.
Jai Maharaj, Hare Krishna.
Haribol.
This is Tulsi Priya was hosting and then she got bounced, so I'll just in her stead leave a little bit kirtan and then we can start unless you're ready to start immediately.
No, let's take those couple minutes and we're in business.
All right, Jai.
Try.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama,
Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Pariprajaka Stotra Sri Srimad A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Raj Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai, Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Prem Sikaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sham Kund Radha Kundigiri Govardhan Ki Jai, Vrindavan Tham Ki Jai, Navadip Tham Ki Jai, Jagannath Puri Ki Jai, Gangamai Ki Jai, Jamunamai Ki Jai, Tulsi Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande. Hari Hari Bol.
Hari Hari Bol. Thank you so much, Maharaj, and thank you to everyone for being here for Srimad Bhagavatam class with His Holiness Jayādvaita Swami. It is Thursday, May 25th, 2023, And we are reading in Srimad Bhagavatam, we're reading in the Caitanya Caritamrita, Adi Lila, chapter 6. Tonight we're starting with text 232, picking up somewhere in the middle of the purport.
Yeah, I've got the bookmark for it.
And we're so happy you could be here with us, Maharaj. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kendra Prabhu. I'm so happy that we're able to hear your kirtan again. Let me just see about putting some more light on the subject here. Yeah. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Text 232. She Shab Hainu Ami Brindabane Aya. She Shabal Labhya E Prabhur Kripaya. I have attained all this by coming to Vrindavan, and this was made possible by the mercy of Lord Nityananda. Now, we're reading in the middle of the purport. The Gaudiya Vaishnavas never differentiate between The Gaudiya Vaishnavas never differentiate between Radha Krishna and Lord Chaitanya. They say that since Lord Chaitanya is the combined form of Radha Krishna, he is not different from Radha and Krishna. But some misled people try to prove that they are greatly elevated by saying that they like to chant the holy name of Lord Gaura instead of the names of Radha and Krishna. Thus, they purposely differentiate between Lord Chaitanya and Radha Krishna. According to them, the system of Nadia Nagari, which they have recently invented in their fertile brains, is the worship of Gaura. Lord Chaitanya, of Gaura, Lord Chaitanya, but they do not like to worship Radha and Krishna. They put forward the argument that since Lord Chaitanya himself appeared as Radha and Krishna combined, there's no necessity of worshiping Radha and Krishna. Such differentiation by so-called devotees of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is considered disruptive by pure devotees. Anyone who differentiates between Radha and Krishna and Gauranga is to be considered a plaything in the hands of Maya. One moment. Okay. The Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, Any questions or comments about that? Okay. There are others who are against the worship of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, thinking him mundane. But any sect that differentiates between Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Radha Krishna, either by worshiping Radha Krishna as distinct from Lord Chaitanya, or by worshiping Lord Chaitanya, but not Radha Krishna, is in the group of Prakrita Sahajiyas. Since Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, the author of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, predicts in verses 225 and 226 that in the future, those who manufacture imaginary methods of worship will gradually give up the worship of Radha Krishna. And although they will call themselves devotees of Lord Chaitanya, they will also give up the worship of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and fall down into material activities. For the real worshippers of Lord Chaitanya, the ultimate goal of life is to worship Shri Shri Radha and Krishna. Om Jnana Timirandhasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshun Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manopistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Koda Mahyam Tadhati Shapadantikam Vandehang Shri Guru Shri Jatapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Shagrajatam Shahagana Raganatan Vitam Stam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Shahagana Lolita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagapate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kamshana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hori Priye Vancha Kolpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindho Pyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktarinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Sakalaneha Mahata Yoga Nashta Parantapa. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that I spoke this science of Bhakti Yoga to the sun god millions of years ago. It came down from Manu to, from Vibhishan to Manu to Ikshaku. But Sakalaneha Mahata, over some long period of time, Yoga Nashta Parantapa, the system was lost. And therefore I'm again speaking it to you. So the same thing happens with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He introduces his teachings, but it seems that it doesn't take so long in Kali Yuga for things to get altered and thereby lost, at least to the people in general. By the time of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, that problem was evident, that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teachings had been adulterated by inventive people. Al Saki Beki Jat Gosai Gauranga Nagari, so many kinds of Prakritasajas, or Prabhupada says in one place, mundane cheaps, people who take things very cheaply and concoct in their own ways. So one can see this happening just over a few hundred years, and therefore we need to be so careful to preserve things intact. Prabhupada said in one letter to one devotee concerning a sort of innovative preaching program, Prabhupada said, another change, and every day another change. Stop all this, just chant Hare Krishna. So one has to be careful. That's not to say that one can't do, ambitious things or unconventional things to spread Krishna consciousness. But we have to be so careful not to adulterate the substance, especially since on all sides of us, everyone will be pushing for us to change things. If you can just loosen up on this, if you could just find room for that, if you could just modify this, if you could just repudiate that, your movement would be so much more accessible. Your movement could spread so much more easily. You could get government grants. You could get larger donations. You could get so many things. Just change. So one needs to be very careful, because in the name of spreading Krishna consciousness, or in the name of higher philosophical understanding, or under this name or that name, one seeks to improve, and instead winds up adulterating things. Panchatattva says the temptation is to adulterate for the sake of popularity and acceptance. Yes, that it's very strong. It's very strong. You're excluding us. You're not taking this into account. You're not taking that into account. This is extreme. That's fanatical. This is too hard. This is too soft. So everyone is pushing from all sides. If you could just loosen up, or if you could just widen up, or if you could just adjust. One has to be very careful. Tulsi Priya says, if what Krishna spoke to Arjuna has been lost, then what was the nature of spiritual practice or understanding of the Pandavas and other devotees during the time just prior to Krishna's appearance, or just prior to when he spoke the Gita? I'm a little confused, because I thought Vedic culture was more or less intact at that time. I asked Srila Prabhupada that early on, 1968, maybe 69, 68, I think, that if Krishna says that it's been lost, but Vyasadeva was there, others were there, how is it lost? Prabhupada said lost means it was not generally known. So Vedic culture may still have been there, but Krishna's identity as the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the path of exclusive devotion to Krishna needed to be restated. And therefore, Krishna says, Maya Teja Yoga Prokta Puratana, I've come to speak again that same old system. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's see. Let us move forward.
Can I ask a follow-up?
Yes.
So it might not have been, the path of devotion might not have been known, but people were still, sometimes we hear about, there's a religious reformer who comes and says, we need to simplify and go back to the basics and whatever. And then people go, yes, yes, and they all follow him. And then gradually things become more complicated and they get into more ritual and things like that. So had things just become more or less like ritualistic, and it wasn't really focused on devotion?
At Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's time, Lord Chaitanya saw that, at least in South India, that was his observation, that, well, at least you're worshiping Vishnu, but I don't see even a trace of love of Godhead here. So that was, yes, that was there. It can be more toward ritualistic devotion. It can be more toward ditching the rituals. What is that? Shruti Smriti Puranadi Panchratra Vinimbana. And Panchratra, without following the rules and regulations, then what do we have? Krishna says, Vartate Kamakarata. One acts according to one's own whims, or one's own thoughts. This would be better, that would be better, this would be more this, more that. And this is there in various religious traditions, of course, not just Vaishnavism or just Gaudiya Vaishnavism. It's a known trend or known pattern that things over time depart from what the founders established and then has to be revived again. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Panchatattva Prabhu says, I'm not meaning to prompt a complaint about this group or that, but the pressure to loosen our standards sometimes appears to come from within our movement, from certain corners. It's not just outsiders. And Anand Tashay says exactly. And yeah, certain corners. So that's, of course, the it comes from within. Just as what we're hearing from Kaviraj Goswami, that these were worshippers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but they concocted their own ideas that let's just worship Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, or let's do this, or let's do that. So from within our movement, certainly, because others will not, they don't care. Outsiders don't care whether we have Radharani on the right or Radharani on the left. They don't care whether we dress the deities this way or that way, whether we chant this or we chant that, whether we offer this or we offer that. For them, it's not an issue. We're all weird or irrelevant anyway. It's from within that these things come. And of course, you get typically disagreements within a religious movement. Those who will say, we have to hold the line here, and those who will say, you're stuck in the mud. You don't know how to appropriately adapt things. And so there'll always be a tension from this side or between two sides or more. It's not always apparent what's going on. But the process will be like that. There'll be always a tendency to change things. And therefore, Srila Prabhupada was very careful. Don't change, don't change. And yet, sometimes change is appropriate. Adopting new methods, adopting new approaches. So it requires great discretion how to preserve the essential, but not be stuck on outward form, and yet not jettison outward forms at the drop of a hat. Okay, we can go, that's a whole seminar, and I can talk about how that leads to schisms, historically speaking, and what happens after that, and what happens after that. I don't know if posted online somewhere is my seminar, Unity in Perversity, but I discuss all these things there. Maybe it's online somewhere. Shall we go on? Let us go on. Aparnar kataliki nirlaja haya nityananda gune lekai unmata kariya. I've described my own story without reservations. The attributes of Lord Nityananda, making me like a madman, force me to write these things. The Kaviraj Goswami said earlier that these things really shouldn't be revealed. We don't want to talk about our own, drag our own stories into things. But he said, because it speaks to the glories of Lord Nityananda Prabhu, I have to do it. Nityananda Prabhu Guna Mahima Apar Shahasra Bodhane Shesha Nahi Payar. The glories of Lord Nityananda's transcendental attributes are unfathomable. Even Lord Shesha, with his thousands of mouths, cannot find their limit. Sri Rupa Raghunatha Padejar Ash Chaitanya Charitamrita Kahe Krishna Das. Praying at the lotus feet of Sri Rupa and Sri Raghunath, always desiring their mercy, I, Krishna Das, narrate Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, following in their footsteps. Thus end the Bhakti Vedanta purports of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila, 5th chapter, describing the glories of Lord Nityananda Balaram. Okay, it's time for see if we can find it. No. Okay. Chapter 6, the glories of Sri Advaita. Advaita Acharya. The truth of Advaita Acharya has been described in 2 verses. It is said that material nature has 2 features, namely the material cause and the efficient cause. The efficient causal activities are caused by Mahavishnu, and the material causal activities are caused by another form of Mahavishnu, known as Advaita. That Advaita, the superintendent of the cosmic manifestation, has descended in the form of Advaita Acharya to associate with Lord Chaitanya. When he is addressed as the servitor of Lord Chaitanya, his glories are magnified, because unless one is invigorated by this mentality of servitorship, one cannot understand the mellows derived from devotional service to the Supreme Lord, Krishna. So as the chapter proceeds, we'll find these 2 topics discussed. Lord Chaitanya's, Lord Advaita Prabhu's identity in terms of the Vishnu Tattva and his position as a devotee of Krishna or devotee of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Vande tam Srimad Advaita, Vande tam Srimad Advaita, Charyam Adbhuta Chestitam, Yasya Prasadad Agyopi Tatsarupam Nirupayet. I offer my respectful obeisances to Sri Advaita Acharya, whose activities are all wonderful. By his mercy, even a foolish person can describe his characteristics. Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya, Jai Nityananda, Jai Advaita Chandra, Jai Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. All glories to Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. All glories to Lord Nityananda. All glories to Advaita Acharya. And all glories to all the devotees of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Panchashloke Kohila Sri Nityananda Tattva Shloka Dvaye Kohi Advaita Charya Mahata. In 5 verses, I've described the principles of Lord Nityananda. Then in the following 2 verses, I describe the glories of Sri Advaita Acharya. So Kaviraj Goswami is referring here to his invocation verses at the beginning of the work. Mahavishnur Jagat Karta Mayaya Yasrichachadaha Tasyavatara Evayam Advaita Acharya Ishadaha. Lord Advaita Acharya is the incarnation of Mahavishnu, whose main function is to create the cosmic world through the actions of Maya. Advaitam Harinadvaitad Acharyam Bhakti Sangshanat Bhaktavataram Isham Tam Advaita Charjam Ashraye. Because he's non-different from Hari, the Supreme Lord, he is called Advaita. And because he propagates the cult of devotion, he is called Acharya. He is the Lord and the incarnation of the Lord's devotee. Therefore, I take shelter of him. Advaita Charja Goshai Sakshad Ishar Yahar Mohima Nohe Jiber Gochar. Sri Advaita Charja is indeed directly the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. His glory is beyond the conception of ordinary living beings. Mahavishnu Shrishti Koren Jagad Adi Karja Tar Avatar Shakshad Advaita Charja. Mahavishnu performs all the functions for the creation of the universes. Sri Advaita Charja is his direct incarnation. Ye Purush Shrishti Stiti Koren Mayaya Adanta Brahmanda Shrishti Koren Lilai. That Purusha creates and maintains with his external energy. He creates innumerable universes in his pastimes. Ichchai Anantamurti Koren Prakash Eka Eka Murte Koren Brahmande Pravesh. By his will, he manifests himself in unlimited forms, in which he enters each and every universe. She Purusher Angsha Advaita Nahi Kichu Bhed Sharira Visheshtar Nahika Vichched. Sri Advaita Charja is a plenary part of that Purusha, and so is not different from him. Indeed, Sri Advaita Charja is not separate, but is another form of that Purush. Sahai Koren Tar Laya Pradhan Koti Brahmanda Koren Ichchai Nirman. He, Advaita Charja, helps in the pastimes of the Purusha, with whose material energy and by whose will he creates innumerable universes. Jagat Mangala Advaita Mangal Gunatam Mangal Choditra Shada Mangal Yarnam. Being a reservoir of all auspicious attributes, Sri Advaita Charja is all auspicious for the world. His characteristics, activities, and name are always auspicious. Purport: Sri Advaita Prabhu, who's an incarnation of Mahavishnu, is an acharya or teacher. All his activities and all the other activities of Vishnu are auspicious. Anyone who can view the all auspiciousness in the pastimes of Lord Vishnu also becomes auspicious simultaneously. Therefore, since Lord Vishnu is the fountainhead of auspiciousness, anyone who is attracted by the devotional service of Lord Vishnu can render the greatest service to human society. Rejected persons of the material world who refuse to understand pure devotional service as the eternal function of the living entities and as actual liberation of the living being from conditioned life, become bereft of all devotional service because of their poor fund of knowledge. This is their punishment. Not that they go to hell, although that's also available, but that they're excluded from devotional service because of their own unwillingness to accept their identity as servants of Krishna. Well, therefore it said, Kaivalyam Narakayate, impersonal so-called liberation is on the same level as hell. In the teachings of Advaita Prabhu, there's no question of fruitive activities or impersonal liberation. Bewildered by the spell of the material energy, however, persons who cannot understand that Advaita Prabhu is non-different from Vishnu wanted to follow him with their impersonal conceptions. The attempt of Advaita Prabhu to punish them is also auspicious. Lord Vishnu and his activities can bestow all good fortune, directly and indirectly. In other words, being favored by Lord Vishnu and being punished by Lord Vishnu are one and the same, because all the activities of Vishnu are absolute. According to some, Mangal was another name of Advaita Prabhu. As the causal incarnation, or Lord Vishnu's incarnation for a particular occasion, he is the supply agent or ingredient in material nature. However, he is never to be considered material. All his activities are spiritual. Anyone who hears about and glorifies him becomes glorified himself. For such activities free one from all kinds of misfortune. One should not invest any material contamination or impersonalism in the Vishnu form. Everyone should try to understand the real identity of Lord Vishnu, for by such knowledge one can attain the highest stage of perfection. Anything here so far? Okay. Koti Angsha, Koti Shakti, Koti Avatar, Eta La Srije Purush, Shakala Shamsar. Mahavishnu creates the entire material world with millions of his parts, energies, and incarnations. Maya Yaiche Dvi Angsha Nimitta Upadan, Maya Nimitta Hetu Upadan Pradhan, Purushi Shar Aiche Dvi Murti Haya, Vishwashrishti Kore Nimitta Upadan La. Just as the external energy consists of two parts, the efficient cause, nimitta, and the material cause, upadan, Maya being the efficient cause, and pradhan, the material cause. So Lord Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, assumes two forms to create the material world with the efficient and material causes. Purport. There are two kinds of research to find the original cause of creation. One conclusion is that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the all-blissful, eternal, all-knowing form, is indirectly the cause of this cosmic manifestation and directly the cause of the spiritual world, where there are innumerable spiritual planets known as Vaikunthas, as well as his personal abode known as Goloka Vrindavan. In other words, there are two manifestations, the material cosmos and the spiritual world. As in the material world, there are innumerable planets and universes, so in the spiritual world, there are also innumerable spiritual planets and universes, including the Vaikunthas and Goloka. The Supreme Lord is the cause of both the material and spiritual worlds. The other conclusion, of course, is that this cosmic manifestation is caused by an inexplicable, unmanifested void. This argument is meaningless. The first conclusion is accepted by the Vedanta philosophers, and the second is supported by the atheistic philosophical system of the Sankhya Smriti, which directly opposes the Vedantic philosophical conclusion. Material scientists cannot see any cognizant spiritual substance that might be the cause of the creation. Such atheistic Sankhya philosophers think that the symptoms of knowledge and living force visible in the innumerable living creatures are caused by the three qualities of the cosmic manifestation. Therefore, the Sankhites are against the conclusion of Vedanta regarding the original cause of creation. Actually, the Supreme Absolute Spirit Soul is the cause of every kind of manifestation, and he's always complete, both as the energy and as the energetic. The cosmic manifestation is caused by the energy of the Supreme Absolute Person, in whom all energies are conserved. Philosophers who are subjectively engaged in the cosmic manifestation can appreciate only the wonderful energies of matter. Such philosophers accept the conception of God only as a product of the material energy. According to their conclusions, the source of the energy is also a product of the energy. That's circular. Such philosophers wrongly observe that the living creatures within the cosmic manifestation are caused by the material energy. And they think that the Supreme Absolute Conscious Being must similarly be a product of the material energy. Since materialistic philosophers and scientists are too much engaged with their imperfect senses, naturally they conclude that the living force is a product of a material combination. But the actual fact is just the opposite. Matter is a product of spirit. According to the Bhagavad Gita, the Supreme Spirit, the personality of Godhead, is the source of all energies. When one advances in research work by studying a limited substance within the limits of space and time, one is amazed by the various wonderful cosmic manifestations. And naturally, one goes on hypnotically accepting the path of research work or the inductive method. Through the deductive way of understanding, however, one accepts the Supreme Absolute Person, the personality of Godhead, as the cause of all causes, who is full with diverse energies and who is neither impersonal nor void. The impersonal manifestation of the Supreme Person is another display of his energy. Therefore, the conclusion that matter is the original cause of creation is completely different from the real truth. Material manifestation is caused by the glance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is inconceivably potent. Material nature is electrified by the Supreme Authority, and the conditioned soul within the limits of time and space is trapped by awe of the material manifestation. In other words, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is actually realized in the vision of a material philosopher and scientist through the manifestations of his material energy. For one who does not understand the power of the Supreme Personality of Godhead or his diverse energies, because of not knowing the relationship between the source of the energies and the energies of themselves, there's always a chance of error, which is known as vivarta. As long as materialistic scientists and philosophers do not come to the right conclusion, certainly they will hover above the material field, bereft of proper understanding of the absolute truth. Well, there's quite a lot more here. The inductive method is the speculative method or ascending method, and our method is the deductive method. In sort of popular discourse where the words are used rather loosely, we think of, or where they're used in a different way, we think of deduction as really what we would call more strictly induction. We deduce things by seeing A and seeing B, and therefore thinking, well, it must be C. That's really what we call the inductive method. We take the evidence and try to figure out the conclusion. But what we mean by the deductive method is the method of hearing from authority, hearing from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the representatives of the Lord from Shastra, and thereby, in one sense, starting from the conclusion, not teasing out the conclusion through a speculative approach, but understanding from authority. Srila Prabhupada has the impersonalists say that the personality of Godhead is a product of matter. They accept that there's a personality of Godhead, but he's a product of matter. But then again, matter is supposed to be a product of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And so we have a circular understanding or circular misunderstanding. Whichever way we take it, whether through a scientific bias or an impersonal bias or a materialistic bias, we become, we focus on the material energy as being amazing or bewildering. And we think of that material energy as all in all, or we think of the material energy as illusory and think that only the impersonal absolute is real. Either way, Prabhupada wants to point us to the personality of Godhead. Kendra says, would it be fair to say that the inductive method cannot be truly conclusive? Yes, Shruti of course, Shruti of opinion also, but Tarka Pratishta, the argumentative method, will be inconclusive. There's always something that we didn't take into account. We have new data, or we have a new way of looking at things. So in the words of Rabindra Swarup, we used to think, but now we know, becomes we used to know, but now we think, when looked at, when seen as it is. So yes. It just came to my mind during the reading, and I thought I'd recommend, since we're studying these opening verses of Chaitanya Caritamrita through these chapters, I'd like to commend the book. I believe it's called Sacred Preface by Swami Tripurari, where he's gone into these verses at length, at book length, quite an excellent book. Those who wish can I'm sure find it on the internet or wherever. I found it helpful. Yes, Tulsi Priya.
Maharaj, when you're saying that some philosophers are saying that the Supreme Personality of Godhead exists, but he's a product of the material nature or the material energy, it makes me wonder, is anybody defining their terms? Because when you say Supreme Personality of Godhead, first of all, what is God? And second of all, Supreme Personality of Godhead, how it seems, at least even in the Western world, by definition, God isn't material and is beyond the material manifestation. So how can somebody who says that God exists, and if you follow a standard definition of God, say that he's a product of the material energy?
Well, the traditional Advaita philosophers, of course, don't go by Merriam-Webster, nor do they go by Prabhupada's English translation, Supreme Personality of Godhead. They're talking about Bhagavan. And their premise is that Bhagavan is, yes, he's God, but God is not what we think he is. Although Shankaracharya admits Narayana Paro Vyaktat, Narayan is beyond the manifest and unmanifest material nature. He admits that, but elsewhere from his teachings, we get the idea that Bhagavan he's Brahman, but he's Saguna Brahman. He's Brahman with qualities. So Brahman with qualities is still Brahman, he's divine, but he's not the, what should we say, first-class Brahman. There's the absolute, indescribable, impersonal, ineffable Brahman who takes a personal form, or which takes a personal form as Narayan or Bhagavan.
Mm-hmm.
So they have their idea. Of course, still, it's true. Where do they, why would an impersonal absolute appear as Bhagavan? How could an impersonal absolute assume features when everything is one? So they have problems. If everything is one, where does variety come from? Or how could the absolute truth manifest as with qualities? Of course, they have their arguments, but finally, it doesn't make sense. All right, Kiva says, oh no, he said that already. Okay.
Did I ask you a quick follow-up?
You could, but we're toward the end here.
Save it for tomorrow.
Okay, so we'll pick up again next Thursday with this Chaitanya Charitamrita, and tomorrow we'll continue with Srimad Bhagavatam. And I wonder who's doing Kirtan this evening.
Panchatattva Prabhu?
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Jai Om Bad Punaman Supari Prajakacharya Ashtottara Satashi Srimad A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Shadi Gaur Bhaktavrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sham Kun Radha Kun Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadip Dham Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Ki Jai Gangamai Ki Jai Jamunamai Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Samaveta Bhaktavrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bo. There's a question from Shurabhi Kunj, direct message. Because I'm supposed to be at Sadhushanga tomorrow. Will I be giving class? That's my intention, then I'll give class tomorrow. Let's see if it should be not problematic, but if it's problematic, we'll do something. All right. Thank you, Panchatattva Prabhu. And thank you to all. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you, Doug. Thank you, Shara. Hare Krishna.
Guru Maharaj, your classes make everyone want to chant Hare Krishna.
I think it's your kirtan that makes everyone want to chant Hare Krishna.
That was a wonderful class. Thank you.
Your kindness, mostly reading, makes it wonderful. Hare Krishna.
Thank you everyone for being here. Srimad Caitanya Caritamrita ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jayādvaita Maharaj ki jai.
Jai.
Kendra Prabhu ki jai.
Jai.
Bhakta Vrinda ki jai.
Jai.
Gaur Premanande.
Haribol.
Haribol.
See you all tomorrow, Lord willing.